Não, mas é só aqui. Na transmissão ela fica certinha. Foi muito bom, obrigado. Bom dia, Ju, tudo bem? Bem-vindo. Dia dos Pais, por sinal, para os dois.
Feliz Dia dos Pais, no Brasil.
Os três. Os quatro. Tem Maria também.
Os quatro?
Maria dela.
Ah, tá
Você
certo.
está trabalhando hoje?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We will start with our initial text here, true harmonization. And it's the number 35 from the book Living Spring, Fonte Viva. Let us spread the good. Do not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Paul, the letter for the Romans, chapter 12, verse 21. When facing evil, all the elements of nature do all they can to restore harmony and ensure the victory of the good. When a storm seems to have destroyed the landscape, the divine forces of life come together to restore it. The sun shines on this law, healing the wounds of the soil. The wind caresses the grove, drying out the branches. The song of the birds replaces the voice of the thunder. The plain receives the runoff without complaining, and transforms it into precious fertilizer. The air, which bore for weight the clouds and shock of destructive lightnings, become light and pleasant. The tree, which broken or damaged fronds, regenerates itself in silence so as to produce new blossoms and new fruits. The earth, our common mother, has to endure mudslides and hailstorms periodically, but does not cease to enrich the good more and more each day. In view of this, why do we harbor the bile and the bitterness of evil in our heart? Let us learn to cope with diversity, educating its energies to improve our lives. Ignorance is merely a long night that eventually gives away to the sun of wisdom. Use the treasure of love, of your love, in all directions and spread the good everywhere you go. Let's pray. Thank you. Let's close our eyes, connect ourselves with our divine essence, feel the presence of the good between us, and thank God, thank Supreme Intelligence to bring us here together today, to find answers to our humble lives, to find answers to sublime this existence. Dear Jesus and all spiritual mentors, be with us today, inspiring us for the good and for the light. May we all have a pleasant meeting where we find answers to our own lives. So be it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Sorry, I never met you before. Do you speak English all good? Yes? A little Portuguese? Um pouquinho de português? Ah, ok, eu vou fazer o possível de vez em quando eu dou umas traduzidas. Ok?
Eu agradeço.
Por nada. Okay, we will talk about what is Spiritism. This is actually a series. This is the second meeting that we're talking about it. The first one we talk, where did we come from? And basically we talked about the first part of the Spirit's book. Now we will talk about where do we go when we die? That's a question that many people make, and I would say the second part, a segunda parte do Livro dos Espíritos, the second part of this book, talks all about the spiritual world. So our goal today is exactly reflect a little bit about the spiritual world, how it is, and how do we feel about it. To start our initial reflection, I would like to invite you to reflect about a few questions I have here. First, how much do you understand about the hereafter? Quanto você entende a vida após a morte? And this can be your own conversation, inner conversation, so don't need to answer here. Can you feel the presence of disincarnated spirits in any degree? Some people might see, some people might hear, some people might feel. And some people might feel nothing. Do you feel yourself an immortal spirit? Or do you feel just this matter that we are wearing right now? And finally, what is our mission as immortal spirits? Do you know this answer? Well, we will go through a few questions of the second part of the Spirit's book today, but for sure we won't cover everything, and lots of answers might be still within us or with us. But all these questions here should be answered in the light of Spiritism, as I said in the second part of the Spirit's book. The first question I would like to invite you to reflect is the question number 76. How may we define spirits? It's a good question. This is Allan Kardec question in the Spirits. How can we define spirits? And the answer is quite interesting. We can say that spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. They populate the universe beyond the material world. So, this is an important reflection for us. If I am not wrong, it's the first question of the second part of the book. And when Kardec questions this and get an answer that first, taking the second phrase, they populate the universe beyond the material world, already brings us a reflection, okay, life doesn't cease here, or it's not just our side or our matter that there is life. And intelligent beings. This is a very important point because in the first meeting, we did about this in about the first part, we saw that there is the nature of the beings. Every single being in the universe are created by a triology, which is based in spirit, matter, and God. With these three components, we can say that this is the nature of the beings. Or being, sorry, erase the B. This is the nature of the beings. And specifically for this one, intelligence is a particular or a peculiar definition what it is. So, going forward, connected to the next question, I would like to invite you. Is it correct to say that spirits are immaterial? Because as I mentioned here, there are three main components. The will of God to create, for the creation, the matter, right? All types of matter, and the intelligent beings, which can call spirit. Is it correct to say then that spirits are immaterial? And you can join me now. I would love if you join me and don't do a monologue here. Does it make sense to say that spirits are immaterial?
Yes, but to be seen or felt, they need a bridge to the matter.
Mm-hmm. That's a very important point. Everybody have any other points, or can we go to the answer? Now let's see what the spirit says, or Kardec. How can we define something when we have no terms for comparison, and when we only have an insufficient language at our disposal? Can one who is born blind define light? This is a very good question. How can a blind person define light? Immaterial is not the right word. Incorporeal would be more precise, because you should understand that since it is a creation, a spirit must be something. A spirit is the quintessence, even in Portuguese I have a hard time to say. Quintessentialized matter. Thus, you have no analogies for describing it. It is also so etherealized that your senses cannot perceive it. So basically, we're saying that immaterial is not the right definition, and that our poor language is unable to describe what is the spirit, or if it's immaterial or not. Well, that might be, how come our language can't define? Well, think yourself Kardec's time. 160 years ago. How would you define in 160 years ago, what is this? There wasn't the word remote control. there weren't televisions or any type of electronic that would use this thing. How could we describe this in his age? Imagine now 2,000 years ago, try to describe this. Or not 2,000, but let's put 500 years ago. Probably if you brought this with you and tried to explain, someone would burn you in the fire pit at this public square because they would call you a witch or a sorcerer. That's the thing. Our language evolves as we evolve, as immortal beings. As the world evolves, we can understand a little more what is surrounding us. And basically, that's what the spirits are saying here. The spirit is not totally material. There is a very light presence of matter. And in the question 93, then Kardec explores a little bit more this. Is the spirit per se without a covering, or some insist it is surrounded by some kind of substance, right? Have you ever heard about aura, right? Aura. People talk about it. Oh, you have a beautiful aura. They can't see, but it
When you
thinks,
explain a ghost, you put a blanket over.
right? Some kind of it, right? But basically, a lot of people talk about it. And is this true? Kardec is asking the spirits. And then comes a beautiful answer. The spirit is surrounded by a substance that might look vaporous to you, but which is still quite dense to us, spirits. Nevertheless, it is sufficiently vaporous to be able to rise itself up into the air and travel wherever it wants to go. Does anybody know what the spirits are talking about here? What is this?
Perispirit.
Exactly. It's the perispirit. In the next question, the 94, this one is the 93, the spirits compare it with the perisperm, which is the cover of the fruit, right? The fruit have that little cover to protect it, that they call perisperm. And he makes an analogy to the spirit, and that's what we call perispirit. So there is a very, very ethereal, very vaporous substance that envelops the spirit. And this is exactly where we are trying to go, because this very light matter is the way that we have the relationship with this material body. So the spirit connects to the body and reveal its intelligence through the perispirit connecting to the more, let's say, dense matter, such as our body. But what about the spirits who are not incarnated? Can they express themselves without the material body, such as ours, just using the perispirit? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes? How they do that? That's a good question then. Let's evolve. So if they can express themselves in the material world, is there a way? Have you ever heard a way that they do it? Well, these 5 books here are a way that they did. This book here is a way that they did. Because through mediumship, which is nothing more than the connection of the perispirit of the disincarnated spirit to the medium spirit, right? There is the perispirit of the medium, perispirit of the disincarnated. through a connection, a very, very light connection that happens. We can understand and receive messages and a full book, such as this one, all written by a spirit through a medium called Francisco Cândido Xavier. So, with that said, comes another point. In this second part of the book, Kardec identifies that, well, there are many types of spirits. As human beings, right? Here, we have good people, have not so good people, we have very good people, and we have very, pardon my language, but very bad people too. Sometimes they can do very bad things. And to understand a little bit more this in the spiritual world, the spirits guide Allan Kardec to divide in 3 orders these spirits. So there is the order of imperfect spirits, which is the first one, if you rather. Then the second order, the good spirits. The third order, what's the first to the second, basically, what these spirits do? So there is a classification of these spirits in the spirits book. They call impure spirits, frivolous spirits, pseudo-learned spirits, or pseudo-knowledgeable spirits, neutral spirits, boisterous and disturbing spirits. And what about the good spirits? Benevolent spirits, learned spirits, wise spirits, and superior spirits. Now, would you have an example of this third category that you would like to share with us?
All of us.
Exactly. Most of us are in the third order, yet evolving to get on the second order. As we can study in the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, the world, Earth, is passing through a transformation, a transition, passing through a world that most of the spirits are imperfect, with all this disturbance, to a world of little better spirits, what we call regeneration. So, exactly. So, in this process, there is this, what we call regeneration world, because it's not a good world yet. Even in the Gospel According to Spiritism, the Spirit Saint Augustine says the regeneration world is just a mid-world between imperfect, or trial and expiation, if you rather, and the good world, which the good start to prevail, but is not absolute yet. That's why we still see a lot of bad things happening. But is it the majority of people doing? That's basically the difference between a world of trial and expiation and a regeneration world. Regeneration world, the majority of the people try to do good. But in the trial and expiation, the majority of the people, at least 51% of the incarnated beings, they are not so good. So, with that said, we are in a process of becoming this. And thank you for the effort of being here today to understand a little bit more about our nature, because this is a very important part. If we don't understand that we still have some frivolous or impure things in our current existence, how can I start develop benevolence, learning more, becoming wiser? This is why we are here. But there is also a first order, what we call pure spirits. And before we talk about these ones, would you guys have any example of good spirits? Would you remember any one that calls your attention or called, maybe it's not alive anymore, that we could classify as a good spirit? Could be a benevolent spirit or even a superior spirit.
Madre Teresa.
Mother Teresa, we can certainly say that she was very benevolent, right? She was working a lot to help people. As we can say, she could Xavier helped a lot of people, right? Superior spirits, Emmanuel is a spirit who wrote all these messages, by the way, and it is currently incarnated. We don't know who it is, but he is incarnated. So we have many examples. But what about pure spirits? Do we have many examples as well? Incarnated in Earth?
No.
No?
Jesus.
Just one, right? In the question 625, which is the third part of the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec asks, who God has offered to humankind as a moral example to be set, as model and guide for us. And the answer is probably one of the shortest of the Spirit's book, says, see Jesus. And Allan Kardec makes a very interesting comment of this question because the answer is so short, and he puts out all these points. He was the most evolved spirit that has ever walked on earth. Well, since the book was written in 1857, and we didn't see any better example since then, I will still trust that he was still the only one pure spirit who ever walked on earth. And this is a first class and only class, because certainly if we barely can understand our current states, imagine to classify what is a pure spirit. So for us, let's call it, it's a one class. That's what Kardec says. Among the questions of the second part of this book, there is one question. This one question is what we call a main source of knowledge question, which is the question 115. Many people know this question. Many people know the beginning of the answer of this question, but this question reveals one of the questions that I put there in the beginning. Do you know what is the mission of the Spirit? Do you know what is your mission? Well, the question doesn't state this, but we will see. Basically, Kardec was talking with the spirits about the nature of the spirits, and he asks, have some spirits been created good and other evil? I'm sure that you almost all you know the answer of at least the first phrase. What is it? You can say in Portuguese if you want.
No.
No? You remember why? Exactly. God has created all spirits, all, not one, all spirits, simple and ignorant. Look in the item before here. So Jesus wasn't created the pure spirit?
No.
No? Oh, for sure, was created simple and ignorant, because all is spirits. So there is no privilege. Everybody is created simple and ignorant. And because the ignorance, there is a bad connotation of this world, although it shouldn't, because of the origin of the word mainly teaches is without knowledge. Ignorance is not a bad word, it's just say lack of knowledge, doesn't know everything yet. But the remaining of this question is very important for all of us because basically tell us about the Spirit's mission. God has given each of them a mission. It is aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them toward perfection through knowledge of the truth in order to draw them near to God. So, each one of us have a mission, and our mission is to progressive enlighten ourselves toward perfection through the knowledge of truth. For that, we can say that we will be closer to God. What is truth? It's easy to say knowledge of truth, but what is truth? Where, or can we say in a different way, where the truth resides? Where the truth sits, and we are sure that whenever I want to search for the truth, truth is there.
The gospel.
The gospel. That's a good point. Yes, in the gospel, according to Spiritism, the Spirit of Truth says that in the gospel of Jesus, all the truths can be found. It says exactly this. Right after that, another passage of the gospel according to Spiritism that everybody knows. All spirits love each other. This is the first teaching. Instruct yourselves. This is the second. And right after that comes, in the gospel, it can be found all the truths. It is from human origin, all the errors done in Christianism. But coming back to here. So if in the gospel are the truths, why it contains the truths? It connects to our previous slide, talking about Jesus, right?
Yeah. Because it was passed by the pure spirit.
But what a pure spirit does? What can we surely say about the pure spirit?
That is perfect.
That he or she is always in line with what?
God's will.
What is God's will? The divine laws.
Yeah. No.
So if in the gospel of Jesus, through his actions, his example set, we can find all the divine laws that will promote our perfection. And in that perfection, they will achieve pure and eternal happiness, is already a big invitation. Because the truth, nothing more than the divine laws. If it's not a divine law, it's not truth. It's as simple as this. Well, Eric, but how can we study the divine laws then? Because it's not everywhere. Well, third part of the book. Next meeting that we continue this, we will be talking about why are we here? So what is Spiritism? The title is, what is Spiritism? Why are we here? And this question is basically already saying this, why are we here? To understand, to know the truth. And this subsequent part of the question says a very important point, how we can achieve this faster or not. Spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials that God has imposed on them. Some accept submissive these trials and thus arrive more quickly to their destination, whereas others cannot endure without moaning, complaining, revolting. Thus, through their own fault, these latter ones remain far from the perfection and happiness promised to them. This is a very important point. First, submissive. Is submission a passive thing?
No, you have to want, right, to not react to something. It's a choice. I think.
I have to choose, instead of rebelling, knowing, to submit myself to God's will. That's basically what is God's will.
To take us to perfection and eternal happiness.
I mean, enlightening, to draw near to Him. He is constantly inviting us to know the truth and to reach this perfection, which we will find happiness. Not the happiness that we usually think about, and that happiness of sitting in a nice bed, having coconut water or something like this. This is not exactly the happiness. The happiness is peace of mind. The more peace of mind we have, that we are assured that we are doing the right thing, don't we feel our heart fulfill, I did the right thing. I loved my brother as I would love myself. I fulfill the law of love. This brings us so much happiness, right? So I really invite you guys to explore a little more this question. This is a very, very, very important question of the Spirit's book, and brings us a lot of revelation that there is, first of all, there is nobody who was created better than the other. And if there are people who are, as we said, some examples here, Mother Teresa, Chico Xavier, or any other, that have, we can point as a benevolent or a superior spirit, he or she has worked hard in this process of perfection, as we see here. But he or she was also created simple and ignorant. The next question I would like to invite you to reflect is the 166. How can a soul who did not reach perfection during the corporeal life complete the work of its purification?
Reincarnating again.
Awesome. Start by submitting to a trial in a new existence, or reincarnating. But with this question comes another one. Does an incarnated spirit preserves any trace of the perceptions it had and the knowledge it acquired in previous lives? Because that's an important question. If there is something missing for me to evolve, can I remember what it is so I can do it faster? Well, we don't remember exactly everything, but we do have a vague memory, giving the incarnated spirit what you call innate ideas. And here comes a very good point. When we see those kids playing piano, 4 years old, like Mozart, really playing like Mozart, what do we think about it? Like, he's a genius. He was born like a. But there is no privilege. Everybody was created simple and ignorant. So this proves that that spirit had some memory coming from other life. But now, what about the opposite? What about that teenager or adult who really does bad things, really, really bad things, right? likes to literally kill other people or torture other people. Can we say that God has created that spirit evil? No, we just saw that doesn't make sense. But it's also memory from previous lives. So either our good actions or bad actions come with us. And we are invited through the knowledge of perfection, as we saw in the previous slide, through the knowledge of the truth, working hard in ourselves to overcome this, to overcome what is not so good and to improve what is already good. In the question 224, Kardec insists, what becomes of the soul during the intervals between incarnations? So, what happens with us? So, if we believe, okay, I reincarnate and I have these things to work in this life, what about during the period between these two incarnations? And then it becomes an errant spirit, aspiring to and awaiting a new destiny or a new life. In Portuguese, we misunderstand this word errant because in Portuguese, errante, and we understand that spirit that's in error. It's not exactly this, which means it's just a spirit that didn't evolve it yet and still needs to reincarnate. So a spirit who is in between two incarnations is called errant spirit. Then in the question 226, Kardec returns, could we say that all spirits who are not incarnated are errants? So if the spirit's not incarnated, for example, us, or the spirits who are surrounding us, are they all errant? No? Why not?
This is a perfect spirit. He found his way.
That's a very good point. Exactly. Those who must reincarnate, yes, just those who must reincarnate. But the pure spirit who have reached perfection is not errant. Their state is definitive. In other words, they don't need to reincarnate anymore. Jesus came, but he didn't need to come. He came to give us a message, to teach us a message, but he didn't need to. But Eric, what about Emmanuel, who is incarnated? Well, he was a superior spirit. He wasn't a pure spirit, and he still had something to do here. That's why he incarnated. That's why he had a must in his timeline as immortal spirit. And all of us. So we, through these experiences, we will evolve. Because through this, in English we call trials, in Portuguese we say provas. As we understand the process of being to be in a trial is not something that's punishment, but a great opportunity to learn, we will remember from the times of school we all had that. I'm pretty sure you still have. That when we have the beautiful exams at the school, most of us had the feeling, this is trying to fail me, not to pass me, but really it's the opposite. That's testing me if I learned. If I learned, check, go to the next grade. If you didn't learn, fail, try again. That's exactly how it is. We try, and trying, for example, to overcome pride. I am a very proud spirit. And then comes a trial of humbleness in my way. And then I failed. I kept my pride pretty high. What will happen? Will I go to hell? Will I burn in hell for it? No. If God is supreme justice and love, He will give as a good father, and have Father's Day in Brazil for everybody. As a good father, He will give us, try again, my son. Here, and I will give you another existence for you to try again. And how many as you want. As many as you want. You still have your whole immortality to keep trying. Because I love you and I'll always give you the tools you need. But then comes the question, do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? Those spirits who are errant, who are not incarnated, can they influence our thoughts and actions? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes? And goes beyond the yes.
More than to be imagined.
Their influence you in this regard is greater than you suppose. For very frequently, it is they who guide you. The more we understand the process of this influence, the more we will prevent ourselves to be influenced by bad thoughts, bad influence. And we will also recognize, oh, this is a good and important thing to do, and a good help that my guardian angel, for example, is giving me. But how can I understand this? Well, for sure, Kardec asked this question. How can we tell if a suggested thought comes from a good or an evil spirit?
By its effect. Each cause has an effect. So if it's something that goes against all the truths, love. So you see that you have this instinct to know, okay, try to kill him. So you see, no, killing is not something good. So it's not on what it's supposed to be. So you need to judge by the influence to see what is good or not. So the judgment sometimes not good. So, but if you go for the truth, you see the difference between what's good and what's bad. That's the essence of God that you have inside of us.
Yeah, this is exactly the process, because what he said, the Spirit says here, study the subject. First of all, exactly what you were saying. Reflect. Does this make me a good person or a bad person? Is this a good influence or a not so good influence? So we study the subject, study the matter. Does this make sense? This is a good thing? This is a good inspiration? Yes or no? And then they complete. Good spirits give only good advice. And this is so important. This little phrase here. Good spirits give only good advice. Why I'm saying this is very important? Because in our world, and for spirits it's as well, we see a bunch of books. There are books. We can go to this library beside us. There are hundreds of books. Probably more than 100 books. The spirit, Francisco Xavier has written more than 450 books. Psychographed more than 450 books. Another 350 from Divaldo Pereira Franco. and many others. So we have a lot of books. But are they always telling good things? Well, if it comes from a good spirit, should be given only good advice. But sometimes we see in some books we read, that's what we call apocryph literature, which is not so good. That, for example, a spiritual mentor is telling the other spirit, no, that's fine. Go have a cigarette or go do something. I question, how come a mentor can be telling someone to do something that's not a good advice? So that's when we recognize exactly what they're asking. Sometimes the suggestions are not the best, and we have to recognize through our discernment. Basically, what you structured was exercise of discernment. We know that this is good, know this is not good. And we teach our kids this, right? This is a good action, this is a bad action. And then comes another virtue called authenticity, that we say them to do something, but we do the opposite. And we lack of authenticity. So the exercise of authenticity and discernment is very important to don't let evil spirits influence our lives. Because the answer is clear like water, pure water. It is your responsibility to take the distinction. It's not someone else. It's my responsibility. If I read something and let's say I multiply that, it's not as good or even creates danger for people, it's my responsibility, not someone else. So I hope the meeting today inspired you somehow to open this wonderful book, the Spirit's book, and study a little bit more. As I said, we thought the book is made in 4 parts. And the first part mainly talks about God and creation. The second part talks about the Spirit's world, which is the one that we were talking, explaining what is a spirit, how a spirit interacts with the environment, either incarnated or disincarnated, and if other spirits can impact the way we behave. The third part is, Kardec said that, is the main part of not just Spirit's book, but Spiritism, because talk about moral laws, the divine laws. And when we find the divine laws, we will find that what is expected from God to us, our behavior. And the fourth part tells a little bit more about our decisions. If I respected God's will or the divine laws, we will find happiness and how, and vice versa.
Do you need more time?
No, I think we're done.
The kids have something to show.
Sure.
Can I bring them in?
Yes.
Okay, they are.
Just a
They're
second.
excited.
Do you guys have any questions?
Sorry.
Any points? If I said anything wrong here, please correct me. And for sure, don't hold all the truth.
If you say something wrong, it's our responsibility to make a distinction.
There you go. You learned something.
Vamos ligar pro papai que ele vem mostrar. A gente vai buscar ele, vamos.
Okay. Very good, guys. Well, thank you very much for your participation. The next meeting probably in September, we will talk about the third part. And really, as I said, the third part of the Spirit's book is is very, very interesting and very important for all of us. Let's see what the keys have.
There's a snail.
It's okay, so you may go. Thank you for waiting. That was very patient. Okay, so what do you guys have there? What do you have, Sophie?
Snails.
Snails. Why do you have a snail, Maria?
Because I wanted to know.
You wanted to make a snail.
Because snails are slow and
They are
they
slow.
carry their homes.
They do. And because that's Herb the snail, right? Everybody rushed Herbie the snail, but what did he say to people? You have to be patient, right? So Herbie taught us that we have to be patient. So that's why we made a Herbie. And now everybody will need to be very patient because that clay is gonna take 3 days to dry. And next week, they can come back and actually paint the snails. And then they can take the snails.
My day.
3 days, Sophie, 3 days. Mhm. Okay, thank you guys, awesome job, thank you.
Now we have two clarifications.
Wait, the days they will dry and then we're going to come back and then we're going to paint it. Well, we're going to
Before we finish, we will have a final prayer, but I would like to talk quickly. In 2 weekends, we'll have this seminar, reflexive meeting here in Calgary with the speakers coming from the Brazilian Federation in Mato Grosso. And we will be talking about the spiritist consciousness, focusing on the parable of the vine, or also known as the parable of the workers of the last hour. It's going to be very, very interesting. Please join us. And for more information, you can find in our website. There are some flyers there if you want to pick one, please feel free. And also, you can come and talk with us after that. No. Oh, keep it. Okay, we will do now our final prayer, and then we go to the classes, okay? Just...
Wow.
I'd like to invite you all to close your eyes. Feel the presence of your guardian angel here with you today, inspiring you, guiding you to find a good source of water, living water, to overcome all the trials and expiations you pass in life. Let us raise our thoughts to our Father and pray. Dear Father, thanks for this wonderful opportunity today among friends, brothers and sisters, in the light of Spiritism, find the comfort, the consolation that life carries on, the spirit carries on, and it's not this one our last chance, but you, Father, as a loving and just Father, always believe in us. And this faith, the comprehension of your loving presence in our lives, inspire us every day to be a better being and help others to be better as well. So, Father, enlighten our brothers and sisters who are following us through the internet. Inspire our brothers and sisters who wanted to come here and didn't have the chance. And enlighten this house, Father, so we can receive and welcome all the brothers and sisters, incarnated and disincarnated, in need to find you. May our week be blessed and light. So be it.
We're going to the day.
Essa vantagem, vai brasileiro de canadense. Eu moro nos Estados Unidos. Trazer como se eu trouxer aqui vai aumentar. Deve ter sido $50 nas suas mãos. Mas eu tenho que marcar, você tem que marcar, já não marcar um churrasco, você vai lá e você. Isso, então, ontem eu falei com o Anderson, existe uma remota possibilidade de. Pode ser,